Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Welcome to episode 105 of the Near Memo with David, Mike, and Greg. And as always, we talk about local, search, commerce, and social media. As always, tons of stuff to think and talk about. We were doing a lot of debating in the green room about what was interesting to talk about today. We talked about Silicon Valley Bank and the social media echo chamber. We talked about Bing's new user growth. We talked about a bunch of stuff, but we've decided in all of that to talk about a new Google bug that Mike will be explaining. I'm going to talk a little bit about TikTok and the local opportunity, or local TikTok, and David wants to talk about the relaunch of Gowalla, which is really interesting, and what it might mean for the local space. So, Mike, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. So there's been this very infrequent bug in Google, which has apparently gone global the last few days, where if you access your new NMX, the search-based interface to edit your business for the Google profile, you're delivered a message that says your business is not visible to customers. Now, what's interesting about this message historically has been delivered, like if you have a new listing, Google boxes it for about 10 days to prevent rapid escalation of spam. So you might see this message for 10 days after you verified. If you were recently reinstated from a suspension, same deal, you might see the message for 10 days. If your business was suspended from Google, you might see the message. And now you're just seeing the message randomly. Now, Google never explains why they're showing you the message. So the problem is, if you see this message, you have no clue what's going on. So you need to develop a diagnostic tree. And it's such a classic Google kind of, we fixed one thing and broke another in real time, but this time it appears to affect lots of businesses. It's particularly obvious if you bookmark your listing and use the bookmark. It typically will show up. It will only show up in the search interface. So one way to diagnose is if you have the bug and not some other issue, is if your listing is older than 2 weeks, and if you go to Google Maps and it's working as intended, this is the bug. If you're still seeing the message, you might be suspended, but who knows? It could be any of the above. And it's just it's one of these clusters that I find so fascinating, because they throw these messages around, and it looks like every department uses them when they feel like it. And they never end up making sense. And now they really don't make sense, because it just sort of shows up when nothing's going wrong. So
one might even use the adjective Kafkaesque to describe it.
It is very much so. I've developed a whole sort of logic decision tree to figure out how to navigate it. It's like I should probably be spending my time better, but I find this so fascinating, and it does help people. So I will publish those shortly.
I'll go back to the old adage / question: is it a feature or a bug?
Yeah.
And knowing Google, this could very well just be a mechanism to cut down on why isn't my business ranking support requests.
Or it could be a message
that's simply backfiring on them in this case.
Or it could be a message that shows up before they give you a suspension of some sort, but they haven't quite got around to giving you the suspension or something. You're right. It could be part of a bigger rollout, and we're just seeing the wrong site first. Who knows?
Well, it strikes me that this is a Google has the luxury to behave this way because they are unchallenged, right? If there were a search marketplace that was truly competitive, meaning back in the early days where it was more like a third, or something like 60-40, kind of breakdown. Google would be forced to deliver better service and be more transparent around these things.
Yeah, the question too is their development style, right? They don't stage developments. They roll them out to 1%, 10%, 50%, 100%. So it's always real people testing their buggy products, which is very successful for rapid deployment and testing, but it's very incompatible with the way the business world works, because they will roll a product out, break it, screw your business, pull it back or not, whatever. And it's like, it's very profitable for them to use that methodology. It just is so incompatible with the way every business in the world works. So it's multiple things. It's bad service after they break it, but they shouldn't be breaking it in the first place.
Well, I mean, obviously there are ways to do this that would they're rolling out their AI stuff on Google Workplace with so-called trusted testers. They could use that methodology until they got something right, and then released it to a general audience.
Yeah, but
True.
Google Workspace is a little different because that's a private space where if something breaks, you're the only one who's impacted, right? Like, I mean, this is something where, consumers are the ones who are impacted, and I guess businesses as consumers sort of, where this is a very public problem for them, and a Google Workspace bug, okay, you can't access your email or whatever. Like that's only
that's true.
A one person temporarily. So.
Mike, have you said all that you want to say about the bug?
I have. It just
have you gotten it out of your system?
Tune in for episode 106 as we discuss the next Google bug that comes out.
Yes, if we're ever at a loss for material, here it is.
That's right.
It sort of makes my week, I don't mean to sound like a curmudgeon all the time. I just find it fascinating the way they run their business and make money. And it shows up in these sort of weird ways. It's kind of like popping pimples, It's just weird.
All right, good segue to TikTok there, Greg.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.